Okay, I think people already registered. So, hello everyone, and welcome to Cloud Lunch and Learn session. My name is Marcus Soldo, and today we have a second session of actually it's a third session of our series sessions related to Power Platform. We have once again Sharon with us talking about the contract management solution, Power Automate. She's going to go on the second part. She's going to go in much more details about it. And I will actually hand over to you, Sharon. So here we are. Enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Everybody's got lunch ready and we can munch away and learn something new. So thanks very much for the invite, guys. It's great to be back again. Had some lovely feedback and some great interaction from you last time, so expecting the same again. If you can, put your questions in the chat as we go through, or feel free to come off mute and just ask your question out loud if it's something that we can address and answer as we go. So as you were saying there, oh, let me just click through. There we are. So this is part 3 of this series, but it's my second part on this contract management solution. So in case you weren't here last time, my name is Sharon Sumner. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP, which just means I get to play with Power Apps, Power Automate, and the whole of the Power Platform quite a lot. I come from a place of SharePoint skills, so I've been in SharePoint for a couple of decades now. And I do always say yes to a coffee. Please do scan my QR code at the bottom there, link with me on Twitter and LinkedIn, and reach out. And if you've got anything you want to go through, give me a shout and we'll make some time of an evening, my time, and we'll just talk through any solutions that you're developing. Always happy to help. I've got a blog all about the Power Platform, which is called Powerful. And I'm also the leader for the Cambridge in the United Kingdom Power Platform user group, which isn't actually in Cambridge anymore, it's virtual. So like everybody else, it's completely global. So do come and join us. We've got a hashtag on Twitter. And, you know, if you want to come along to our event, we've got the next one in October, where we'll have April Dunham and Heather Newman. So there'll be some good stuff in there, specifically around Power Apps. April's going to be looking at the new CDS Lite, or whatever it is we're calling it these days, Project Oakdale, which will be a really good session. So, as I mentioned last time, my mantra is getting to value faster. So it's important to me that we talk about a solution that is going to allow you to leverage what I'm teaching you. So the whole point is that I'm going to talk about a business solution. I'll show you the complete solution end to end, but I will keep it very basic. So it's what I call keeping it vanilla. I'm going to show you how you can put this together for yourself so that you could follow these steps, but it's up to you to add the flavor to it, to add the spice. So I'll show you a basic process and then you can walk away from that in as many directions as you want. If you need any help with that, there's some information out there on YouTube, again on my blog, or reach out. This slide deck, I'll be passing it to the guys afterwards. I've got both sections in here for part 1 and part 2, and the demos are recorded and embedded into the slide deck so that you can repeat them and play them at your own speed. So don't worry if you don't keep up today, or if it's too slow for you today, you can play it at your own speed later. So we've got lots to get through. So let's just talk about the topic again. So a quick review. So what we looked at last time was the fact that the contract management lifecycle, document lifecycle particularly, goes through these 4 phases. So we create a document, and this is the part we covered last time, where we looked at being able to feed some information in and for that to automatically create the document for us. Then that document goes through an iteration phase where it's being passed between parties. And then what we end up with is usually a signed PDF. Now, whether that's been through DocuSign or any of these online technologies, to get to that sign point, we usually end up with something that's been scanned and is the official version that needs to be kept on file. And then what we need to do with that complete version is, from the final information, we need to extract that data to be able to work out when the contract's going to expire or to do anything around that renewal process. So we broke it down last time into these 3 stages. The first one, create that contract. So this was a complex document where we were filling in lots or little amounts of data, and we surfaced that in Microsoft Teams to make it very easy, and the technology was hidden behind adding data to a list and it just appearing into a finalized contract Word document. So today we're going to do the other side of it. So we're going to do these two items where we're going to use a Power App within Teams to convert that final signed contract into data in a list, and then we're going to monitor that list and notify people in Teams when something needs attention, when it's expiring. So this is what we're going to address today. So and this is what I've just said. So it's coming in as a PDF. We need to extract just the contract data into a list to be able to monitor it. So we've got to bring that data out. Again, typical uses are going to be contracts, NDAs, any kind of employment contract. And specifically for this one, we need to make sure that everything is standardized. I'll explain that as we go through. Technology-wise, we're going to use the AI Builder. Now, again, this is a premium service that you need to add on to your basic Power Apps license that you get with your E3 or your Business Premium or Business Standard, as it's now called. So it is a premium service that does need to be added on. And this is to get us that PDF extraction through the AI model that we're going to build. So we're going to show you how to build the model today. And we're going to deploy that with Teams, but with SharePoint in the background. So it'll be a SharePoint list visible through Teams. So I'm just going to dive in and start going through the videos and going through each of the items. Like I say, please feel free to interrupt if you want some more information on any particular section. So to set this up, so looking from last time, we have our team. It's our Microsoft contract team. And we've got these two tabs at the top here, one for contract details and one for the completed contract itself. So now what we need to do is we need to jump into this site and be able to add in a Power App. So let's do that through Power Apps. Sorry, I can hear somebody in the background. That's really off-putting. Let me just, could everybody make sure they're on mute? Okay, so what we're going to do, let me just pause that for a second. What we're going to do is we're going to nip to the AI Builder. So what we did there is we went to this AI Builder menu here and we clicked Build. Now, if this doesn't appear on your menu, it's because you haven't got the free trial enabled. So we can do a 30-day free trial to allow you to play with this. I think I was on 12 days left at the time I recorded this. So what this does is it lets you build models and it lets you play with them ahead of time. Now, what they've done is they've pre-built some models for you. So rather than connecting to cognitive services like you would have to within a Logic app, for example, rather than connecting to cognitive services and setting up all of the parameters of your model, there are certain types that Microsoft have predefined for you. Those being form processing, which is the one that we're going to use, object detection, and prediction. Now, actually, there are loads more of these now. Excuse me. The most common demo one is the business card reader, and that's not dissimilar to the functionality that we're going to see today, except we're going to look at a document that we've defined using this form processing. So like I say, form processing, it's looking for a pattern, it's looking for data, and it's extracting it. Object detection, you may have seen, there have been several previews online with things like, I think Shane Young does a beautiful one with his little Chewy dog toy. You know, lots of people have done it with Lego just to prove that, you know, this object can be recognized. And you can imagine in a manufacturing setting that could be really useful for picking out objects that don't quite look like they should, for example, on a production line. And then there is the prediction one. So prediction will look at a likelihood that something's going to happen. So say, for example, you're filling in a form or you're gathering some data. Even from a sales perspective, from the information given, we're trying to predict whether or not this person's going to buy, this invoice is going to get paid based on previous record of speed of payment, etc. So it's more about prediction. So again, there's quite a few models now. Language detection is now out of preview, as I think is key phrase extraction. So there's some nice models in here that we can use. Excuse me. So the one, like I say, we're going to use today is called form processing. So we're going to create and train a brand new model. So let's do that. So, and this interface has changed slightly since I recorded this, so don't worry if yours looks slightly different to mine. So what we do is we just create a new model. And as you can see, it's asking for some sample documents to be able to train the model. So I happen to have some that I've already created here. Now, what you'll see is that all of these documents look exactly the same, and that's because you need a formulaic approach to what these documents are going to look like. And again, from some learning myself when this feature first came out, I wanted to suck in some documents and be able to find data all over that document. It doesn't quite work like that. It's more of a JSON pair arrangement. So it needs tag and value to be able to understand what the value is that it's analyzing. So the clue's in the name. It's a form analyzer or form processing. So it's looking for a label and then the value within that form. And I've left this going in real time just to show you how quickly it does the analysis stage. So what it's doing is it's looking across all 6 documents and it's looking for the commonalities between them. So here we are with our document, and it's highlighted what it thinks fit into this pair of values, as I was saying. So what we can do is we can say, I'll take all of your recommendations and I'll take all fields. I can just tick the ones that I want. I can rename the fields if I want to. And that would have been a good rename, but I forgot to save it. So I just hit done. So do remember to save it. So you can see I now have 9 fields selected. So in the summary, it shows me those selected fields and the data source. I then hit train, and it's busy training my model. The model appears in my list of models, and I can go in and I can then publish that model to make it available to the apps. So you can see here that the model can be used in Power Automate or Power Apps. It's showing me my selected fields. And, this is just some basic information about that publishing process. Again, I'm leaving this open and letting it work real time to show you just how quickly it does this publishing step. And there it is. So I could click on Power Apps over here, but I'm going to click Use Model and then click Create a New App. Now, all this is doing is it's creating an app with the context of that data model already. What I could have done is I could have gone to Power Apps, said New App, and then just brought in the data model itself. As I'll show you on the next screen, it doesn't do a great deal of plumbing for you, but it's a nice shortcut to make sure that you know that you're using the correct model. So the Power App itself. So once we jumped into Power Apps, you can see, and this is the block that it put in for us, which doesn't really need to be this big at all, but we'll leave it there because it is the analysis part. Now, one thing that I would say to you is I would immediately jump into this preview mode and analyze a document so that the app has some values in its context for the remaining part where we're going to be pulling out some fields to display those values, simply because it makes the IntelliSense actually appear faster.
Sharon, sorry to stop you. Your microphone is a little bit odd.
Oh, okay. What's happening?
I don't know. I can hear you in the echo. I don't know. Maybe the other guys, can you just confirm me? The others, are you having issues with the sound?
Yes, it occurred to me as well.
Is it just echoing?
It's echoing and it's a little bit a weird sound. So can you maybe turn off and on again, maybe your microphone?
Certainly. Is that any better?
No.
Okay. 1 moment. I'm just selecting a different one. I'll change out and then I'll change back again.
Yeah, still is on.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, perfect. Very good. Thank you.
Awesome. Not a problem at all. Always happy to change. Okay. So, as I was saying, and I'm not quite sure which bits you got now, so I'll do a slight recap. So what we've done is we've trained the model, we've jumped into the Power App, and this Analyze window is now available to us. Unfortunately, it doesn't show us a preview of the PDF, but it tells us which PDF we've got in focus. And what I was saying is it's always best to analyze a document ahead of trying to do this pulling the data out of that document, because it speeds up the IntelliText being able to understand those variables. And it's just a slightly faster way of this form processor appearing. It's just a hint and tip that I picked up as I've gone along. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some text boxes to pull this data out into. Now you'll notice that I'm not using label as a field. I'm actually using text boxes, and there's a reason for that I'll go into a little bit later. So what I'm going to do is very easily and quickly, I'm going to reference the form processor, which is my data source. I'm going to say in the form content and the fields, and all these prompts are there, as you can see, as I hit the dot, and I'm going to pick up one of the fields, and it's actually, let's pick up contact. So you can see from the document I've analysed, that contact's name is Bob Smith. So it's got it all in context, in memory. I can then copy and paste that field, and then simply change the contact area on the end to one of the other fields. So let's pull out a couple of fields. I think we want to have the expiry and the company name, perhaps. Which I think was called 2. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so you can see now that it's pulled this data out of the document. And to test that, we can just pop it into preview mode and pick a different document. Now, just for speed, I'm using the same documents I trained it on, but they don't need to be at all. They can be documents of a similar type, so as long as they've got the same field structure. And in our case, to get that key value pair, we've used a cover sheet, so that that cover sheet can go on any type of document, and we can put in the type of document that is. So once we've got that data out, what we're looking for is now a button to save those details back to a SharePoint list. And this is why I chose to use a text input box rather than a label. It's because what I want to do with that data is I want to give the end user the ability to change it. Because as we know, when things get scanned in, sometimes they can look a bit squiffy. So if the reader has read a value that it's not quite correct, or if the value has gone in and it's not the official name of the company, but it's how the document ended up, I want to be able to have the ability for the end user to just change those details slightly. So once we've done the pulling the data out into these fields, underneath the same save details, we need to have what we call a patch statement to be able to patch that data into our list. So what we'll need to do is go and set up a SharePoint list for that to be saved into. So we're going to jump into SharePoint from our team. We're going to go to the root of the site, which is where we can use the new list menu. And we're going to create a list for that contract details or data to come back into. So let's say this is our signed data. We're going to call it contract signed. So now we need some columns to write the data into. We could have taken a copy of the original list that we created the data from last time, but as it's only a couple of fields and just for speed, we're going to create those columns of company name and contact. So jumping back, we now need to write a patch statement. So to do that, we need a data source, including in the app. So we're just going to add the data source into the app, which is over here. Data sources, and we're going to say we want it to come from SharePoint. Clicking here, we can add a connection to our site. If you wait long enough, the connections will come up for you, which is lovely. So we're just going to pick the list that we want to write into and hit connect. And now the app has complete context, and we'll be able to write to that list just by addressing it. So if we now we can refresh this at any time, we can edit the data, etc. So, but what we're going to do is we're just going to patch directly into that SharePoint list. So it's important to create the list before we try this save action. Okay, so the patching process itself, and this is well documented. It's not difficult. It's a set formula, and in fact, there is better IntelliSense support for this than there was when I first started writing these. And it literally is a patch statement that says patch this data to the contract signed list, which we saw there was
available to us. Set the or using the defaults from that contract sign in case there is default values that we need to add into some fields. And then it's a JSON pair statement that says, write my title into this field. So, for example, the company field on the page with the text that's in it, we want to be written to the title. Again, we want in our company name, we want to put the company dot, here we go, text. And we want a contact, which we're going to get from our contact. Now, what I would say is it's always worthwhile, if you can see on the left-hand side in the tree view, it's always worthwhile to rename your values that you're going to use rather than this text input 1_1. So anything that I'm going to use, I tend to rename so that when we are reading through the JSON, it makes sense. So there you go. There was our patch statement. I appreciate that was a bit quick, but again, you can come back and look at this at your own speed. So now what we can do is we can save those details to a SharePoint list. So if I analyze a new document, it takes it a second, you'll see the data change. So we've pulled out these values, and if I wanted to change the company name, oh, not like that. Let's make that slightly better. And then hit save details. It's gone slightly grey, so we have a clue that that worked. And again, you would add all kinds of navigation to say, thanks for saving this. You know, you could add actions off the back of that save button. But this is just to show you that we wrote back to that list and we now have Microsoft Limited rather than just Microsoft. So that was a massively sped up version of patching because there's lots and lots of details out there. Again, there's a very good Shane Young video that will take you through the intricacies of patching. I think I've got a blog article out there that talks you through things like dates and number values specifically. So this was something that we wanted to just show you quickly how to get this back to the SharePoint list, because I wanted to move on and show you the expiry side of things too. So to be able to integrate that into Teams, then we need to be able to publish the app to be able to surface that into a tab within Teams. And again, really simple in Teams. You simply, once you've got the permissions for it, you simply come in here and add the Power App. So if I just search for my app in here, which I think I put this nice green star on it so that I would recognize it. So some things to note with Power Apps, which are quite obvious, but I'll just point out, is that the Power App itself, the members of the team need to have permission to the Power App and also the data source. So there's no point in sharing a Power App with somebody if they can't access the data source underneath. Now, because we're doing it within the context of a team, all of the team members already have access to the lists and libraries within this team. So that's, again, a nice reason to do it in this kind of Teams package, if you like. So again, we can now see that we've bought the app within the team structure. So from a team member's point of view, they know nothing about the technology. Ideally, we would, and I'm just showing you through here an example. Ideally, we would have done this in tablet mode, so it would be the other way around. We'd have much nicer buttons, you know, that we would have maybe some intuitive guidance on how to import this, or even, heaven forbid, field titles. But you can see that I'm just demonstrating the functionality to you here to say, look, we're analysing this document, we've changed the text, we've saved the details. And now if we jump to the list that we're putting those details in, you can see that the saved details have been changed, not the original scanned ones from the document. So then we need to extend this to fulfill that final part of the puzzle, which is the expiry notifications. So we can't work on expiry without adding expiry to the list. So what I did off screen is I've added expiry as a date here, and I'm patching expiry in using the app. So let me show you a little of that. So what we've done, we already bought out the expiry when we were looking at the fields within the Power App. So Now that we have that data, we're writing it back to the list. What we need to do is work out when it expires, what we're going to do with that information. So what you're seeing here is I'm just putting in a recurrence Power Automate, which I'm just going to run once a month. So this is because contracts tend not to expire extremely frequently. So what I'm doing here is I'm just connecting to the, connecting to the team site and saying in that contract signed data, get all of the items and then scroll through them and find out on an apply to each which ones, I appreciate this is going really quickly, which ones have got the condition which is going to be the date within a certain range. So what I've said is from apply to each value in the get items, so that's everything from the list, and we're going to find the expiry, which needs to be searched in here. From the expiry data, is it less than or equal to today plus 30 days? So is the expiry date within 30 days of today? So if we run that once a month, it's going to get everything that's going to expire within, if we start on the first of the month, within the next 30 days, which is give or take the month itself. So to be able to do that, we need to add in a little expression. So we're going to say add days to UTC now. So that's going to be today, and we're going to add 30. You could be more precise. You could do 28.5 or whatever the actual average is. So what we're saying is, does it meet that expiry? And if it does, then we're going to need to tell somebody about it. Now, again, there are a whole bunch more Teams actions that have arrived since I recorded this video even. But what we're going to do is we're going to look to post to a channel. We're just going to put a message in that, that says that something is expiring. So we get to pick the team that we're going to use. And again, it has the context of me logged in as the user. We're going to pick the channel and then we're going to create a message. For this particular one, we're just going to write a mix of text and HTML, which is completely supported. And what that will do is if it fits the yes condition of that query, so if the expiry date is within the next 30 days of today, then it's going to give us a message in that Teams channel, which means that we could end up with a whole block of messages appearing. You might want to check this every day and have a better filter statement on this Power Automate. Like I say, this is a very vanilla solution for you to have a think about how you might use this as a technology. So there we are. If no, we're not going to do anything because we don't want, if there starts to get lots and lots of documents in this list or lots of expiries in this list, we don't want this to run ad infinitum and doing loads of functionality. We just want it to drop out. So what this will do then is if that expiry fits that criteria, which I think I did make it a 2019 date, then we're going to get, oh dear. Okay, so for anybody that knows HTML, we'll be able to spot the error there, and I've left that in just to show you. If you have a capital A on an ahref, it doesn't render it as valid HTML. So we just need to make that a lowercase a, and then that will turn into a hyperlink, just to show you how it can go a little bit wonky. So let's save that and test it again. It will run through and find our one document. We're going to hit the run flow. And now if we pop back, hopefully we get a decent, there we are. So what it's done is it's posted a channel message that says something is old, and we can go and check that out. Okay. So what we would have potentially at the start of the month is maybe 10 of these, and maybe that's not correct. What we could have done is have a person responsible field in that list, and we could then have made a specific at mention to that person and sent them a notification that it is expired. Lots of possibilities that we could have done here. What I'm doing here is I'm just showing you how this works in practice. So we're going to analyze another document. And I happen to know this is going to go wrong. But again, I've left it in for you to show or to make the point. So we're just going to analyze a document that we haven't had in there before. And this is what it looks like from the end user's point of view. This is all they see. So they hit save details. Again, you would have navigated away so that the end user knows that that's happened. And you'll see my expiry date didn't appear, even though my expiry date's in the app. what I actually did, and what you'll see over the next couple of minutes, is me trying to work out why that hasn't happened. So it's really important to publish your app when you make changes. Even though the app appears here, it's actually not the published version where I put the expiry date in the list. So what we have is an old version of the app running. So if I now go to the app, you'll notice that from here, if I hit the play button, it will work just fine. And it looks like I've twigged it. So while I have saved the app, I hadn't actually published it. So publishing it pushes it out, pushes that update out. And some of the tips and tricks that we do is we put a version number on the screen, or we change the color of the icon so that the end user can see that it's a slightly different app loading. So I'm just testing within here that is in fact going to work. And I'll hit save details and nip back to the list, and we should see a date has appeared this time. If it loads, there it is. Cool. So now our date is there. So actually everything was completely correct, except for the fact that I forgot to publish the app. And it is really important as you're doing iterative development and you want to see it live in the end user environment that you do remember to hit that publish button. And again, there we are, just making sure that it's going to work in the live environment. There we are, new date has appeared. And so now if we were to run that Power Automate, it would be looking at every one of those. So like I say, this would then eventually become quite a lengthy run of that flow, and running it every month is probably not ideal. Also, bringing in every item is not ideal either. So again, what you would do is at the beginning of that flow, you would only go and get items that matched a certain expression, or you would be able to separate into different lists and write it into a different list based on the type of document that it is, perhaps, and then only be going through a certain set of items in that list. So again, the way that you can change this is completely up to you. So I've gone through at massive speed today. So what we actually did during the session is we've created a Power App, we've converted that final signed contract into list data, and then we've got a flow that's been and had a look at all of that data and brought it to your attention when something is expiring. So that means that we've created two final areas, and oh, look at that, I've got through it superbly quickly. Now, hopefully you've got lots and lots of questions, or I can talk you through some more of the eccentricities around some of those apps. I'm just going to check if we've had any questions already. Everybody's still eating, right? Does anybody want to come off mute and talk to me? A multi-page PDF. It will. So basically, as long as all of the fields are within that, so I only showed you really a cover sheet. I didn't bother putting the rest of the document underneath it. So if I had two different scenarios there. If I had a 10-page document underneath, but actually only the front sheet matched what I had trained the model on, then it effectively is going to ignore the rest of those 10 pages, but they have been analysed, if you like. So it's looking for the match of the data that we've trained it on. However, if I had a 10-page document and page 1, 3, and 5 all had fields that I had trained the app on or trained the model on, then it would find all of those and it would scan through the entire document. So it's looking at the PDF as an entire file, regardless of number of pages, and looking for that match data. So that's all done within the AI side of things. So yes, that would work for multiple PDF, or multiple paged PDF as well. Does the match work with position anchoring, or is it anchored by relative text? A great question. Yes and no. So it can do. So what we can find is that as long as if the tag appears in the same location on the page, it's absolutely going to find it. But if we have that pair and they're appearing as they, as long as you haven't changed, it's now big, bold and green, then the chances are that it will find it throughout the document as well. So it's more, what you need to do is put more training into the model to begin with, to show it how it's going to appear in the different locations, and let it work out that it is the same data but in different locations in the document. So again, it's looking for the pair, the tags. Anybody else? I usually get asked a licensing question at this point in time, and those are always difficult to answer because licensing does change and it changes consistently. But at the moment on the AI builder, it's a consumption model, so it's number of calls. And again, you can see how this is going to influence how you design your solution. So if you think of it as an API call to the model each time, then it makes sense that you're pulling that data into a list and then working from that list data, rather than looking at the document every time you want to make an assessment, so that you're minimizing the AI builder impact or cost. Does it have to be properly created PDFs, or do scanned PDFs work with this? Again, so we're looking for whether it is a text PDF. So if SharePoint Search, this is a good test. If SharePoint Search can read that document, then the AI reader can read that document. So it is slightly better at it than Search is. So we've seen it work on, I'm going to call them images, but it's a really loose term. We've seen it work on some quite dodgy looking PDFs, frankly. And we've seen it not work on some very clear pictures. So again, it's about testing, making sure that what you're putting in is being reflected by the model. And there is no limit on the amount of times you can go back to your model and feed it some additional training. If you feel that it's not picking up those values correctly, go and give it some more documents. Like I say, we gave our model in this example maybe 6 documents. And if you look at, say, the image recognition one, which is more in line with what you're talking about there with a scanned PDF, which appears more as an image recognition takes maybe 50 plus images to get to a genuine image recognition. You know, I can always recognize this wherever I see it in whatever context. So if you think about the two, you're going to need to put in a lot more training of your model if it's going to vary in quality for the input that you're going to put into that. You notice the data was extracted, from the invoice contract and stored within a SharePoint library list. Can I attach the PDF to the SharePoint list? Probably set it up in yeah, absolutely. So the document itself, what we did is we pointed to that document with the PDF reader. So what we can do at that point in time is take the path that we pointed to. And if that, for example, is a SharePoint document library, then the Power App would be able to extract that or know that. So you could either link back to where the location of the Power App is. So I actually use this solution in my business. And what we do is we have a document library where the scanned PDF lives. Excuse me. And when we scan that PDF, when we bring it into the Power App for it to read it, the record that it creates, it also puts a link back to the original PDF because it knows where it got it from. So we can pull that through within the Power App itself. Anybody else? Has anybody used this in practice? Is anybody using Power Apps at all? So obviously one of the things that, thank you, Brandon. One of the things that I take for granted is that the Power App would work immediately on the phone. So because I did that in a phone format, if I have the Power Apps app on my phone, whatever OS I've got, and I have access to that document. So if you think about this from an expenses point of view, and I'm about to do an online course where we are looking at expenses. So you could take a picture of a receipt and then store that. So you could use that. You could look at the matching on it, or if it's it does need to be a similar format to everything else, obviously. So if you filled in a form, you could take a picture of that form, it would then recognize that form and it would pull those details out for you. So, you know, it can be super useful on the mobile as well. So all you need is that credential that you logged into Teams with, that you're logging into Power Apps with, and that app then comes with you everywhere you go. Not yet, a little too. Okay, it's good to know that you're starting to use it. If anybody's got any questions, or if you've got a particular scenario that you're going through and you're thinking, I think I can do this in Power Apps, or I think I can do this in Power Automate, do reach out to me, because, you know, this is a very much a trial and error kind of moment where you can very quickly repeat the same mistakes that everybody else is making, or let's not call them mistakes. Let's just say you can be inefficient with using the platform, and there are potentially some better ways to do it. The Power Automate and the Power Platform community is so helpful that if you just ask, one of us will jump on a call with you and go through your app with you and help show you any ways that it could be improved. Oh, somebody sent me a YouTube link. I do love that. Created a video on YouTube. How to create a PDF file by a SharePoint list. Oh, in Portuguese. Fantastic. So again, last week, thank you, Eduardo. Last week we talked about creating the document itself. So what we could have done is we could have had the system create the document that it's eventually going to scan in. We didn't do it in quite the same format this time as we created last time, because I wanted to show you the difference there, in that what we can do with Word is we can fill in various different elements in a document that just have the tag in them, whereas with this AI reader we need the pair. You must have the value, the title, and then the value, which we didn't have last week. But last week's was a slightly different requirement in that we needed to fill in that long and complex document. So what we could have done with that document, and what my solution that's live in my environment does, is it puts that sheet on the front as well. So we always create the front sheet, and then if the data gets changed in the Word document toing and froing in the signing of that document, then the final solution, once we've got that scan, we'll read that back out again as to the final value. So we can see, if we want to, the difference between what we created and what we ended up with, but largely what we need to know is what we ended up with and when that needs to be renewed. Can this support other language? It can actually, yeah, there are language packs, and there are lots more languages coming on board, and I think actually there's something at Ignite about languages, but I'm not quite sure. Hopefully everybody is looking to attend Ignite in the next few days, and I'm very excited about taking part in my first Ignite. I should be working with the Teams team on an Ask the Expert session, so do come and join us at Ignite and you should see all the latest. Again, I would look at the roadmap for the Power Platform. So we've just released Wave 2, which has got lots and lots of new features coming live at the moment and continuing to go live. And the AI Builder has had some massive extensions to it, along with the Power Virtual Agents too, which we saw in the first session by Eduardo. Eduardo, did you want to come off mute and tell us about your solution? From what I understand, we need to pre-sort the invoices, contracts, and feed the relevant PDFs to the respective model we have trained. Is it possible to use Power Platform to tag or sort the invoices too? Okay, let's think that through. Feed it to the respective model. Okay, so yes, the model is based on looking for a type of data. So you can't mix two different types of data in the same model. So what I would do in that instance is I would create a page in the Power App with the model, the relevant model introduced on each page, and I would ask on a front page, what type of document are you going to upload? So I would then use that one to navigate to the correct page with the correct model on it. Unless you're saying you're getting some kind of a big pot of data that you want to go through, and is that, if so, is that a one-time requirement, Pranav? Yes, okay. So again, it depends. Okay, it depends how those documents are coming in, because what you could do excuse me, is you could use Power Automate, for example, to look at the documents and based on their data, put them in different locations, and we could then point to a specific location. We can use Power Automate to access exactly the same AI builder model. So we could put an if statement into Power Apps and direct it to the model, the associated model. Many ways to skin that cat, I think. I hope my cat isn't around. Don't want to skin him. Awesome. Okay, anybody else? No problem. So one of the things that I often come across in this area when we're talking about AI models is that it can be super flexible. One of the things that we did a demonstration of, and I think it was last year, was the sentiment analysis, and that's got to be one of my favorites in terms of how you can use Power Automate and Power Apps to process data and get a result out that isn't obvious from the data itself. So whether that is something, I'm not going to say it's not super valuable. If you are big on Twitter and you're a customer service agency and you want to understand the sentiment of those tweets, then okay, it's more important than perhaps I value it in terms of business value. But sentiment analysis can, for example, look at tweets and see whether people are generally happy or unhappy. And you can then use Power Automate to be able to direct those tweets to people only when they are of a particular score. So effectively what it does on sentiment analysis is it scores you from 0 to 10 or 9.9. And the higher the score, the happier the user. Again, there are some fantastic kind of variants that you can see from that. You can say that you are, depending again on the use of language, whether or not that's going to pick up the right results. So again, that's another use of the AI builder that I really enjoy. Again, image recognition works really, really well in a production environment. I know there's a very big use case on, I think it's Pepsi, who did the image recognition in stores. So they had a particular requirement such that their product needed to be on X shelf. So we have reps that go to each of the stores, they take a picture and then they just send it of the shelf structure as they walk into the building. And they don't need to do anything other than walk in and make sure that that's a clear picture and it's submitted to the app. In the background, the system is looking, it recognizes the product, it says what shelf it's on, and it's then storing that data in a list. And that means that those people can either move around those stores really quickly, or you can just use CCTV camera or on-premise support staff anyway to take that picture for you straight into a mobile phone, straight into the app. So you can see that some of this stuff, while it seems like how would I ever use image recognition in a business setting, it can be massively useful and time-saving. And that's pretty much what we're always about, is the time-saving element. Okay. I don't think we have any more questions. So hopefully this has been a good overview into how you can take a business process end to end through the different products, and how the Power Automate and Power App can be extended with some of the premium features rather than just showing you the out-of-the-box stuff. Don't forget that we've used SharePoint as a data storage mechanism in these examples. We could have used the Common Data Service or Project Oakdale or whatever it is we're calling it at the moment. We could have used SQL and used some connectors to that. SQL could have been on-premise or it could have been in Azure. There's literally unlimited ways that we can connect because we can build custom connectors in both Power Apps and Flow. It means that as long as there is an endpoint that we can connect to, we can pull data and push data wherever it is we want that to be. Now, depending on where you host that data, so if you keep close to Office 365 and you're using SharePoint as a connector and a data source, then you're largely within the license of Power Apps and Power Automate as you get it within a E3 or a business premium. Whereas once we start walking outside of that and connecting to Azure or to on-premise SQL, then we start to get into some of those premium connectors and premium features. So what we can do, if you want us to, is we can do another series based on just the out-of-the-box stuff so that you can see what's possible and how you can show business value from just the out-of-the-box connectors. Or if you want some more sessions on different connectors and different ways to access data, present data, or maybe go into the D365 side of things, then just ask and we'll get some more sessions put on for you. So unusually for me, and hopefully Eduardo's got a microphone, I'm going to go quiet for a minute and let the guys talk about the next session that's coming up.
Yes, next. I'm over here. Are you hearing me?
I can hear you.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, thank you. So what are you talking about
the next session?
Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
Yep.
Okay, in the next session we'll talk about the real-time streaming with Power BI, and I think that will show two examples, one with forms, Microsoft Forms, and the next one with the get data, my computer data, okay, and read the CPU data to show up these data on Power BI. And I hope see you on the next week, okay? And I think that the moderator wanna talk about something. I don't know. That is.
Okay, we'll move back to this slide. This is the resources that you can get access to. Hopefully everybody registered and has been along and had a look at these.
Yeah, guys, thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much. Yeah, guys, just before we leave, if you didn't register, if you came later on, please just take a couple of, maybe 1 minute and just register for this session. So later on you can see it all about it. The last thing I just wanted to, actually, Eduardo already said what is going to be. Just I wanted to inform everyone. The next week we will have the last session of this series, Power Platform. Eduardo is going to talk about what he mentioned, real-time streaming using Power BI. But also we do have this week another session. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. It's about security series. It's gonna be this Friday. It's gonna be last session about the security series. We're gonna talk about the securely connect to your Azure resources, and the link is there. So feel free to register. And lastly, I just wanted to say thank you, Sharon, for this amazing, presentation. I learned much more than before, and definitely, this was a very, very interesting session. And we're gonna record. We already did, so it's gonna be on our YouTube channel. So everyone, whoever wants to repeat or to check out, you can do it there. And the last thing, it's about our feedback. Basically, I'm gonna just put in the chat our survey. So feel free when you have time, just fill this survey so we can, we can improve our sessions. And that's all from me, I guess.
Okay, early session, everyone. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you. Cheers.